As we enter our last hour of this epic March Mammal Madness Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants epic festival, I want to note that the only thing that is almost as loved as the whole program and March Mammal Madness and the amazing scientists we've had on today is the warm-up music. So thank you to the community for being so fun and grooving along with me for the last 7 hours. Guys, my name is Jesse. I am with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. We are thrilled today to be partnering with the March Mammal Madness community for truly one of the most fun days of programming we have ever had in 7 years of being around. We are all about bringing conservation, adventure, and science into classrooms around the world. And so it was such a no-brainer when Katie got in touch to introduce us to this incredible March Mammal Madness. I'm going to call you guys the March Mammal Madhouse. I don't know what the name is for the community, but I really like that for you guys because truly there has never been a more enthusiastic audience ever in our history. I encourage everyone today, if you are new to March Mammal Madness, if this is your first time learning about it, checking us out in this festival today, check out the Lib Guide. Unfortunately, our librarian colleague did not get the chance to be here with us today, but I want to stress with Katie on screen, we love librarians. We live for librarians. They are the best, the most enthusiastic people on this planet. They make the coolest resources. And so if you want to fill out a bracket, if you want to see some great art, check out great resources, check out that Lib Guide and check out all the social media pages as well. 2022 MMM Let's Go. It embodies everything that we are all about today. So thank you guys for joining in for hour number 7. All right, we have covered animal behavior twice. We've done paleontology, genetics, art, and design. We did some amazing animal behavior. I've already said that. My brain's a little fried, and that is okay, people. If you're here with me for hour number 7, I think our brains are all a little fried in the best possible way. What we are going to do to wrap up the festival today is dive back in on a retrospective of a decade of March Mammal Madness. I can tell you, being a science communicator, there are very few programs that last a decade in the science communication realm, much less grow incredibly every single year and get richer and build on extra community around the globe. So a testament to Katie and the entire March Mammal Madness team for making such an incredible program. Now I want to bring on Kristi Luton first. So she's joining us for the second time today, and she got involved early on in the whole shebang. So from a science perspective, can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got involved in the program and how it's changed scientifically over the last 10 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came on in 2013. I was working with Katie. And when Katie started this, I was like, this is amazing. I love it. I love animals. Who doesn't? But I wasn't so sure about all the sports parts of it. So I needed a bit of a lesson. How do you fill out a bracket? What do the numbers mean? What is the seating? I don't know. And after 10 years, I've learned most of these terms, but I have to say I have not learned all of them. So there are still a few things that I'm not totally sure about, but I just figure it out. But so in those early days, it really was a very small team, just a few of us. And it was really, really super intense and fun work, researching all of the different animals, 64 animals, just a few of us researching and narrating all the battles. And it's just been amazing to see how much it has grown and grown and grown. And all these other people have joined in. And now the community is just huge and awesome and amazing. And every year the science gets better. It's always been great. And every year it's getting better. It's amazing.
For a first timer to March Mammal Madness, I must say, like, the depth of expertise and the depth of care that goes into planning these things and showcasing them is mind-blowing, okay? I learned about this and I've been telling everyone and their brother all about it because it's such an incredible program, such a unique way of reaching people, and the feedback from teachers all across the US. Honestly, we've had people, I think, in like 25 states alone today in the YouTube chat. Is unbelievable. So again, thank you for that, Kristi. A great sort of message to kick us off here. Now, earlier today, we had the chance to watch incredible art being made, okay? And that was my cheetah with the meow. Or if you're inclined, we've got our sea slug, which Mark would be or not sea slug, our some kind of slug. Again, brain fried, I told you. So great art earlier today, and that was Karen and Will. So Karen has been involved nearly since the get-go, and I'm so keen from the artistic perspective, which is just as much of this. This is the nice thing about March Mammal Madness is that it's not just science, it's a beautiful mix of art and science. And so as an artist, as a designer, what's your involvement with the festival? How did you get involved and how has it changed over the last 10 years?
Well, I will correct you on one thing. I am an illustrator, not a designer. Designers do something that is completely different and serves the movement of information visually in a different way. We talked with Will earlier, incredibly talented designer. I am not good at design. I'll tell you that straight away. I actually reached directly out to Katie after I participated year 2, and I just thought it would be super fun to draw all of the combatants in the bracket. And my intention was to set up a big bracket on the wall and just move the winners inward until we got to our champion, and then we do a larger, more in-depth piece of art around the champion. It sounds so simple, and I wrote to her. She was very enthusiastic, and we figured out a way to do it the following year that actually ended up producing about 125 to 130 individual pieces of art from, I think, 5 artists that year. It was pretty epic. It was certainly not the scale that I had been expecting, but it was absolutely lovely, and it's been wonderful seeing what it's become.
Yeah. I'm going to bring everyone on screen. Katie, so, I mean, what is the inspiration? You're 10 years ago, you're a scientist, you come up with this idea, like what prompted all this? What led to this incredible program? And I know it sort of grew organically, and we've gotten the sense from scientists all day long that it's changed so much and become so much richer. But like, what's the impetus?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I you know, because we are pedantic scientists, I'm going to say it's not been 10 years, it's been 9 years, because this is the 10th tournament. The first tournament was, of course, the 0 point. So so we've been doing this for 9 years, and it just started because it was a Friday afternoon. It was a couple hours before the departmental happy hour, and BuzzFeed had an animal bracket for March Mammal Madness. And when I was an undergrad at the University of Washington, we actually would skip classes the first 2 days of basketball, NCAA March Madness. And just, I mean, it was just so much fun. Our group of friends, we all did brackets. They were up on the wall, and then we just watched like all day games and trash talk each other's brackets as 64 teams went to 32. And it was so much fun and so much laughter, and just, it was great. And so I was like, okay, we'll do this in the lab. And I printed it out, and we started filling them out. And I was like, wait a second. This is 16 species. You start with 64. You don't start with, you don't start at the Sweet 16. That makes no sense. Yeah. And then it was like based on what was cutest. And like, I was just like, we had them in our hands for like 10 minutes. And I was like, give me that back. Give me a second. And so I went in and I was like, all right, I'm going to like lay out an actual 64. And I ended up at that point thinking, okay, we'll do 65. So we'll have a wild card game for one species to enter the tournament as a 16th seed, and set it up and just kind of did it for fun, and like made this really silly hype video from, for YouTube. And I posted on my blog thinking my mom would win, and like my mom would play. And like, this was 2013, and science Twitter was such a different place in 2013 than it is now. I mean, Twitter was a different place. And so we just I just tossed it up there, and we were having a lot of fun. And people were super into it. A lot of scientists were like, okay, I'm filling this out. And Josh Drew did, he did his own visual bracket with music, and had pictures of the species advancing, and different people just were way into it. And I was like, oh shoot, this just became a thing. And I'm scheduled to go to South Africa and hang out in the Kalahari with meerkats for spring break. Like, I hadn't really thought it through. And then I had to fly out the next week, and I was staying up in the middle of the night trying to like tweet stuff out when the internet would work in the Kalahari Desert. And Chris Anderson, who's one of the organizers still on March Mammal Madness, he and I were in grad school together at UCLA way back in the day. And so he was feeding me information to put into the narratives. Mm-hmm. And it was just wild. And as that year went on, I started getting more and more of these beautiful natural history descriptions of animal behavior and weaving it in. And at the end of the tournament, everybody's like, all right, awesome. See you next year. See you in 2014. And I was like, I can't do this on my own. I will die. And I reached out to Chris and Kristi and Josh because they had been the 3 most engaged players. And I was like, hey, do you want to help organize this and be narrators? And they were in. And that's that step from year 1 to year 2 is when we started getting more serious about citing the literature and having like kind of a structure, right? So, battles happened at 8 p.m. And like one time we were like 5 minutes late, and it was like the Twitter crowd was stomping the bleachers, like, we want the game, we want, and we're like, okay, we're getting there, we're hurrying, like, and that's when it just became clear that like it was a thing, and ever since then, it's just every year we have leveled up, whether it's the art team joining in 2015. Or in 2016, the American Society of Mammalogists started tweeting out pictures from their collection. We expanded the narrator group significantly in 2017. We started surveying educators because it was just started for the general public, right? Just like, here, we're going to do some science. We're going to do some nerdy science D&D, these 2 weeks in March. And then all of a sudden teachers were like, I'm using it with my students and my students love it. It was like, oh, okay, well, and then we started to get feedback like, is there a lesson plan? Can you give us the bracket early so we can plan a lesson? And it's just every year we've expanded the parts of it just to make it more useful, more educational, and more accessible to more people.
Before we dive in some of the more in-depth nitty-gritty stuff, I just want to like throw a host attachment out the window for a second and say, again, how incredibly rare this is in this field. As a science communicator professionally my entire life, like, it's so unbelievable to be able to build something up that gets that level of feedback. And so for our viewers or teachers, for other scientists that might want to get involved in the future, for all the organizations with boatloads of money that might want to fund this in the future and make it 20 times bigger. I mean, this is a truly incredible thing. It's one of the first things that jumped out to me is the amount of dedication and passion that goes into this is so palpable. And every single broadcast we've had today, in the community on YouTube, and everything that you can see on that lib guide and the social media, like, so much care goes into that. And that has led to this audience being, beating the drum at 8:05 to make sure that you get that battle out there. That is a huge, like, honestly, like, bow down, a testament to all of you. It's such a special and incredible thing. I'm honored to have the chance to be involved today. So, we've got a great question coming in on YouTube, which is actually a great prompt for our next thing to keep us going. I love that class is going. You can welcome in Miss Nolan class joining us today in so many comments. Missouri, welcome into Missouri. I think we've been 25, 30 states now, which is wonderful. How do you decide the animals each year? So, Katie, I know you can field this. Kristi, I'm going to come to you to start if you have a comment on this. And go for it.
So we brainstorm. Everybody thinks up what animals would be cool to include. There's a lot of brainstorming of what the divisions would be, what the animals would be within those divisions. And then of course, we come up with all kinds of animals, and we have to whittle them down to only 65. Katie, do you want to talk about the details of that?
Yeah, so we have idea files, and so like throughout the year, whenever there's like some really neat, cool finding, or somebody finds out more about a particular animal, or there's scientists that we really respect and like who are doing incredible work, like, we'll keep track of when they start publishing their papers so that we can feature their animal to then cite their papers. So there's a whole bunch of stuff, and it kind of finally gets finalized in 2 different ways. So we either have like a list of animals that we really want to feature, and we think, okay, how do these fit into any kind of theme that we can turn into a division? Or we think of a division we really want to do and go sleuthing for animals that fit that category. And so it becomes this kind of top-down, bottom-up iterative process. And we'll have ideas and like kind of stockpile them until there's a critical mass to then move forward with it. Or sometimes we switch things out. So in 2021, I had planned on having a mammal money division, and it was going to be, species that are featured prominently on foreign currency. And that, because a lot of countries do that for their endangered species or for other kinds of culturally important species. And it was like, this will be a great thing. And then because of the pandemic and continuing difficulties, like in terms of finances and travel, it was like, well, a mammal money division just seems really mean right now because, people are, struggling financially and nobody can travel. So at the last minute, I was like, animals that are red. was a panic situation, and so it happens, and we have animals that we know cognitively, we know psychologically that children are interested in different kinds of animals at different ages. We know what really hooks people. And so we always have a combination of like charismatic megafauna, some fossil fauna, some backyard favorites, and then things that people probably have never heard of. And that we always kind of keep that mix because it helps sustain interest. If it was all unknowns, people wouldn't have that same kind of attachment. And if it was always the same species over and over, it would get pretty boring.
I want to stress before we dive into the artistry of how this has changed over the years, and then I'd love to talk about that. In Canada, we have all animal money, okay? We've got like caribou on our quarters, we've got beavers on the nickel, we got loonies, which have a loon on them, which is the coolest bird and sounds amazing. Just saying, on that note, if you ever do want to bring that back as opposed to the red animals, I'm very excited personally as a northerner. Karen, so, this is so much fun because every year you get these amazing creatures, these 65 creatures. Do you personally draw them all? Do you draw a good number of them? Is there something that you really like to draw specifically? Maybe a group of things like bats, like we got a lot of rodents this year. We got some fish making their way into March Mammal Madness just to mess with the system. What's your favorite thing?
I like them all. They all have such wonderful adaptations, and I learn so much about all of them each year. That said, I do really enjoy the extinct organisms. I do enjoy doing reconstructions, and the tournament's given me a lot of opportunity to be wrong and then go and do more research and figure out, okay, this is where I went wrong, make note of that, bring it in the next time if that animal reappears down the line. Valeria is our bat artist. She loves all things bat. So anytime there's a bat in the tournament, it will go to Valeria. Her sister Olivia loves the cats. So if there's a cat on the roster, it's definitely going to go to Olivia. And Mary, bless her, takes on all of the microscopic, small, tiny bacterium, copepods, anything that is plant related, and she jumps in there and does them, and they're amazing. Yeah. And if there's a way to make these so small an organism you can't even wrap your head around it, accessible, that is 100% what she does, and she amazes me every year with it.
So we talked about this with art and design earlier today, is this idea that you can represent something in so many stylistic ways that really reach people. And this is something that we all love, animal photographs. I think all of us have seen it. We've all maybe taken tons of photographs of things. There's something about art that captivates people and connects with people in such a different way. Actually, on the bacteria front, there are now like plush viruses and bacteria. And like, if you want to find it adorable, I mean, I know it's a weird time to find viruses adorable, but like, it's incredible to connect with this in this way, and I've seen so many kids and teachers and scientists connect with it. On an ancient animal note, I cannot resist throwing this in because I just absolutely love it. Karen, if you ever get the chance to draw a helicoprion, and if anyone else has ever seen this ever, you should all look this up when you're done this broadcast, because there's nothing freakier in the history of the world ever. I mean, it's a shark with a saw face. It's ridiculous.
You take a shark and a miter saw and shove them together, and that's how you'll get it.
Why? Wow. Also, weird note, we've been talking about some skulls today. So I talked earlier about the orca skull being the most metal skull in the history of history. Like beats any dinosaur, hands down. Platypus skull. Look up a platypus skull, your mind will be blown. You've never expected to look that way. You go, I had a biology of mammals class when I was in university, and I was like, what is that? And I mean, like, I got A's because I was so nerdy, but it was a good time. Everyone should check it out when they're done today. Katie, you had something to add in, it looked like.
I was going to say, I think Karen's what she didn't mention is that the art team does new versions of art for the species that advance round to round. So there's the like walkout art, and then there's the triumph art that becomes the walkout art for the next round. And so they iteratively, and like back in the day when this first started, the idea was that they do like a simple, quick sketch for the first round, right? It'd just be simple. And then it would become iteratively more laborious and exquisite of an entire, art piece. That was the original idea. And then at some point, like as the tournament has grown, as the audience has grown, as the teams added more people and people have, like grown their own skill set, all of a sudden everybody's like coming out with like round 5 art night 1. And you're like, wait a second, when did that happen? It was like, I just, and similarly in the narration team, like it used to be like, yeah, scarf, done. And like, like here's a citation. And now it's like, I have reviewed 15 papers about this species from the mid-20th century. It's like everybody's got these like really like, you're like, listen, this is a 15-2 battle that's not an upset. You maybe don't need to have 15 citations for it or have it last 30 tweets. It's okay. And so it's really telling the extent to which the visual and narrative storytelling has grown every year, and people like all of a sudden are like everybody just levels up, and then it just grows, and it's been it's kind of daunting. Like we kind of sometimes opening night end up with like an Oscars award ceremony runtime, and it's like we got to keep this for 2 hours, you guys. We need to, and so we now have a protocol and have implemented different kind of ways of making sure we keep things flowing and are meaningful and educational and narrative and have the orchestra ready to like play people off.
For what it's worth, I must say, when I was a boy, like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh were my thing. I had like thousands, and way too much money was spent on those cards. And one of the allures was the fact that you'd have like a blue eyes white dragon, and there'd be like 10 different kinds of blue eyes white dragon. And I would seek out every weird indie store in Toronto for hours on end to find the different kinds, because again, art connects with people. And so I didn't know that about the tournament. This is news to me, which is very exciting. You got more people sharing new things in the chat as well. And what a special experience to really reach people. By the way, Katie, you mentioned the citation element too. Our UK Africa-based viewer today are thrilled that there's that like high-level science element. And I want to share a question to lead us in next with Kristi, who again had real trouble with the basketball concept to begin with. So for Ms. Nolan's class, Adeline wants to know, what traits do you look for to decide an animal's seed? Like, how do you pick 2 or 1 or 16 or 15? And is there an answer for this, Kristi?
There is an answer. Katie can give you the real answer, but I'm going to give you my answer.
Perfect.
Which is, okay, what traits do we need to think about? We want to think about things like body size. That's a big one. In general, the bigger the body size, the higher the seed, or technically lower the seed, higher ranked. I'm still figuring out the seeds.
Better ranked, lower seed.
Yeah, better ranked. So body size is a big one. Any other kinds of traits they might have that they could use, like anti-predator defenses, for example, or traits that animals use to fight other animals, horns, big teeth, big canines, that type of thing. Those are the traits that we look at when we're trying to figure out, okay, how should this animal be seated?
Yeah. Katie, more to follow up?
Yeah, and to augment that, so in terms of different species, like herbivores, plant eaters, like some of them have different kinds of anti-predator defenses, right? So some might, like Kristi just mentioned, they might have horns or antlers that allow them to defend themselves against a particular predators. Others use vigilance, right? So if their biggest predator that tries to catch them relies on ambush, they end up keeping an eye out for ambush, and so there's vigilance. But then a lot of them, their tactic is running away, and running away is great. Like, run away, you survive to browse another day, but running away does count as a loss in March Mammal Madness. And so you have weight, and then carnivores or predators tend to be seated better than just their weight because they have adaptations specifically for hunting. We do kind of tinker a bit with the seedings so that the matchups in the first round are going to be reasonable. We don't want it typically to really catastrophically put an animal in a really terrible habitat. It sometimes happens, but most of the time we try and set them up so that there's at least some ability to be on that, like we try to have, aquatic or marine animals interact in the first round and terrestrial animals interact in the first round as much as possible. And so there's kind of some distribution and then a little bit of adjustment. A couple times, for example, we were going to have a monkey deer matchup one year, but like 4 weeks before that, there had been all this science that came out about deer, about male monkeys trying to copulate with deer. And it was like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have a whole bunch of students on the computer doing searches, because a lot of students will search both species at once to see if they do interact in the wild. And I was like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have that search happening in classrooms at this particular juncture, given what's been widely in the news. And so at that point, we kind of like shifted it so they were less likely to encounter each other. And so it's we have to think fairly carefully about some of the ripples out from whatever seedings we give. And so there's a certain amount of MMM magic to it.
Well, so speaking of our current 2022 bracket, on the note of not eating each other, so my favorite, I think, clear upset in the making is herd of reindeer and cauldron of bats. And the herd of reindeer, they're big, they're number 3. Cauldron of bats are going to wipe the floor of them. They're not going to eat the reindeer unless something very strange happens. I don't know if that could come about, but I think the reindeer are off over the tundra running away from these bats. And I'm very excited to see that play out in a little bit. Karen, so when we did our earlier program together, one-on-one, we talked about art. You did this amazing artistry. So we didn't get to talk about your feelings about some of these contests in the past. And so I love this question, and I want to share it with you. First, there's so many questions. This is the problem. Miss Deer's class joining us in Virginia. They want to know, do you have a favorite upset or Cinderella story from a past tournament? Maybe something where you loved the art that you did, and you're like, yes, it won. It shouldn't have won, but it did. What's your favorite?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I've got to go through the Rolodex for this one. But I favorite upset. Wow. Keeper Wasp last year was, oh man, just watching people lose their minds on that one was just unbelievable. And then we'll have the 16 versus 1 seeded animals where the outcome makes what would be considered logical sense. And I have people who still talk about how hard they laughed when the goat of the mountain met the shrew of the water, and the goat looked down and went, "Oh, what are you doing down there? Goodbye," and just kicked it off the mountain. That was the match. That was the match, literally.
This is primo. What do we got in the chat? Mantis shrimp versus alligator snapping turtle. Okay. For this year, again, as a first timer to this, I must say walrus and lichen is my most delightful one.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm picturing the scenarios here where the walrus is very unexpected, just gets surrounded by lichen. He lies down too long and the lichen sort of take him over. I don't know if that's going to happen. Very unlikely.
They're hard sleepers, so you never know.
Hey, Kristi, is there like a biggest upset that jumps out to you?
I find these questions so difficult. It's so hard to pick. Well, I feel like I need to mention the upset from 2014, which was, I think this is the time to bring it up, really.
I think it is.
Pangolin versus the Fouche. Fouche is a carnivorous mammal from Madagascar. And pangolin is extremely cool, armored animal that curls up in a ball. At the time that this battle was happening, there were a lot of news stories about poaching of pangolins. And even just, I think, a few days before the battle, there was something in the news about poaching, how it was increasing, a lot of talk about pangolin conservation. And so that battle ended with the pangolin getting poached. A human came and took the pangolin and put the pangolin in a sack and went off with it. And that was an upset that it was actually very interesting to put that together. And it was really a good teaching moment to bring in the conservation aspects of this and to talk about the sort of some of the human aspects of these animals and the human animal interactions. But people, the community, they were not happy. So that probably is the biggest upset that like sticks in my brain, because people still talk to me about that. And that was 2014.
Yeah. I mean, when you say upset, like upset.
Yes.
People were upset. I mean, like torches and pitchforks outside. Like
I will note, Penguin is back this year.
And not only is it back, but as anyone who's been here for other broadcasts will note, I am Team Sentient Pine Cones all the way. Penguins are going to win. No one has a shot. All these bear and wolf and bat people, there's no way, okay? They got the scale. They got the super tongue. They got the cutest face in the world, which, by the way, if the original thing was for cutest animal, gotta say, like nothing touches a penguin. Like, seriously, a walrus, a stench of skunks, you've got to be joking. By the way,
they're cute.
So on a skunk note,
the sea slug is freaking adorable.
It is. It really is.
There's a lot of adorable stuff going on. So we talked about backyard wildlife a few times today. I was in the backyard once and I saw a skunk and its babies, and I'd never seen this before in my life. And I discovered how they walk around, which I've seen one other time in my life now. The mother's in the middle, there were 4 babies, and they attached themselves to the side, basically, and they walked around all with their tails in the air like a little furry carpet. Who knew? It's amazing. Also, this is such a fantastic tournament that you get comments like this in the chat. So thank you, Figgy the Parrot. Cuttlefish Brain deeply annoyed me, which I think might be our title subsequently for this broadcast when I change it, because that is. So what happened with the cuttlefish? Katie, do you know what happened?
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things to keep in mind is that we do really highlight the way that animals are particularly adapted to their environment. And so we talk about the chemistry of salt pumps between marine and freshwater animals. And if you take an animal that's adapted for a very high salt and high salinity ocean water and you put it in freshwater, the pumps that maintain the integrity of their tissues become overwhelmed and they dissolve into a gelatinous thing. And depending on, they become this gelatinous cloud that an anaconda just swims through. And so you have these kinds of chemistry principles. We talk, I mean, it would be boring if it was always just carnage or always just runs away. And so we specifically look at what are other sources of injury and mortality in these species? What are other aspects of their adaptations? What have people seen happen in their own work as wildlife biologists or animal behaviorists or ecologists, you know? And like, it turns out that owls very routinely get, you know, trapped in outhouses down septic systems. And so Tara Chestnut and Lara Durgovich crafted this hilarious battle in which an owl had to be extracted by people from an outhouse. And so you have these like wonderful, like real life events. The old natural history, there was this amazing battle in real life. It was this beautiful natural history article. It was written by a park ranger that watched a grizzly bear bison interaction that was just, I mean, like I literally, like, most of the battle is in quotes because I just directly took what happened. So a bison came to the crest of a hill in the Rockies, and at the top it met a bear, and it whipped around and started running down the hill and tripped and fell, and the bear jumped on it and rode it like a skateboard down the hill into a ditch, and the bison ended up breaking one of its legs. And so it couldn't get itself out of the ditch, but all that was sticking out of the ditch was its big, massive head and horns. So the bear couldn't actually get in there to like finish it off. And it became like this like thing that was going on. And finally, the park ranger, from an ethical standpoint and a safety standpoint, had to step in and end this encounter because the bison was not going to survive. But it was near enough to a road that a lot of tourists were stopping, and the bear was getting agitated, and so they had to resolve it for everyone's safety. But like, I read that literally bit by bit, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is this is an amazing thing that this park ranger witnessed, and then kindly wrote up and put into the scientific literature. It was epic. And the more you can directly cite, like, this is what happened, it kind of helps settle people down when one of their favorites gets eliminated and busts their bracket.
Yeah. What a fantastic story to throw in. Thank you for that. I did notice, by the way, we talked about insects earlier today. You ought to have spiders, because when they kill things, they like inject them with stuff, paralyze them, and then like suck them dry. And that's just a great way to go out. Like, it's just in the animal kingdom, in the most gruesome thing. It's so fantastic. We've got these, like, okay, on the note of like things, we've got Fig Gate, which is hilarious. We don't need to go into all these. We've got Durgovich. We've got like, it sounds hilarious, everything. We've got Battle Griffin losing an eye to Toxic Bird. Hyena losing to Coyote thanks to getting run over by a truck. Yeah, you guys are strange. I love it. This is fantastic.
But Jesse, like, people remember these battles. They remember these animals. They remember things about their natural history. They remember what happened. And what's really interesting is people are really good at remembering what takes their champion out. Yeah. So in some ways, the greatest learning comes from losing. And that's why we say, if you're learning, you're winning. Because a lot of the learning comes from when your predictions are not substantiated.
Yeah. The Twitter, for anyone who's new to this, if you're just joining us in the festival for the first time or exploring by the seat of your pants audience, check out the March Mammal Madness Twitter, and you will fall down the strangest rabbit hole of your entire life. You'll spend hours, maybe days, just having fun with like all the past descriptions of this. It is such a good time. Okay, we've got all these great things coming in. By the way, Bear Rode Bison, like Legolas rode a shield down Helm's Deep, is both a truly fantastic Lord of the Rings reference and a very, geez, this is great. Okay. Karen, I wanted to share this with you. So I love this. Jessica has been our speaker, audience member extraordinaire, joined us for our genetics presentation. She has a Mary Casillas drawing hanging on her wall. Karen, so for you, you get the chance to, like, you know, Katie, Kristi are talking about these stories that people remember so much. Have you had personal feedback about your art? Any special experiences where people have seen the stuff that you created and just been really touched by it or amazed by it or hung it up, or any story you can share on that would be wonderful.
It is literally the same beautiful story each year, because everybody on the art team pushes each other to level up their game in both traditional media and digital media. And the feedback that we get on Olivia's use of light, and Valeria does these beautiful drawings that are full of personality while still being slightly whimsical, but still accurate. And we hear every year how engaging the drawings are, and how that just improves every year. As Katie was saying, it started out being quick sketches for round one. And when the twins came on board, Olivia and Valeria, they were doing digital work. This was the kind of work that they were doing. Olivia works as an animator, and Valeria is freelancing currently. And I was just starting to explore digital. Mary wasn't doing much with it at all. And now all four of us, having pooled the knowledge that we have, are doing digital work in a way that I don't think any of us anticipated. And the time and effort that goes into each of these drawings does not go unnoticed at all by the people who watch. I have had a piece of work that was adapted for a tattoo. The Stoats' measurement conversion chart is probably one of the most popular things that we have ever done. And there are still accounts out there that will convert any measurement you put in to Stoats for you. And it's wonderful.
I mean, it is wonderful. I love this comment on YouTube about this. And this is something that we've harped on all day long. And again, one of the most unique things about this tournament is, again, the care that goes into the narration, the care that goes into choosing these things, making the brackets, and the art associated with it makes this a truly unique and special program. Geez, all the comments coming in about the art. This is fantastic. See, you said as you were saying it, that came up. Stoats' measurement is hilarious to me. The fact that Stoats was chosen is particularly nice. Like, you could have chosen anything. Stoats is great. We're
Stoats, as Kristi will tell you, has been a unit of measurement since the 1850s.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Found it in a paper.
Yep.
Why?
And we cited it on the chart.
Why is a great question. I don't know
Yeah.
about why.
Apparently, back in the
Why not?
1850s, everybody knew the approximate size of a stoat. So if
Yeah.
you
Yeah, they were
compared
everywhere.
other animals to stoats, everybody's like, I see.
Of course, 5 stoats. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. So earlier, for the audience's sake in the background, Katie emails me after Kristi's last presentation saying that Kristi messaged me to say that her face hurts from smiling. I am in so much pain. Like, I'm so happy, but I'm in so much pain. At the end of this, I'm gonna ice my face. I'm gonna have like what's that stuff? Voltaren. Shit.
Yes.
Our product placement of the day, Voltaren, for fixing your jaw for March Mammal Madness programs. We are at the 41.5-minute mark, so we're near the end of the broadcast. I want to make sure we have time for our classes to connect and talk about this after. But I love this question from the delightfully named Persephone in Miss Nolan's class. So again, a huge appreciation to all of you for all your hard work. Such hard work that your heads are almost cut off by the level of her quote at the bottom. How long does it take everything to get ready? I mean, this is a March program. We're talking about it here in February. Katie's like a little alarmed by this question, but also happy. So, like, when do you start planning for the next year? April?
When are we not planning is, I think, more the question. So to some extent, it's always in the back of our minds. So like maybe for like April, we're not planning. Like there's that big exhale at the end of when the tournament's done, the championship's decided. We say, thank you everyone for making the last weeks really exciting. But then it really comes down to like when we can actually start getting stuff on paper and start organizing. When we're really good, we have our species in December. More often than not, it happens in January, which stresses out the art team because they want to get started on that pretty early. And as we've expanded, so there's things that are always percolating in the background, and then it really starts getting organized on paper in January every year.
Great question, guys. I have one more shameless plug. So Bob Cat, Kristi, before we wrap up, has really wanted you to say carnassials the entire program. And so I'm going to just bring it up on the screen. If you're willing to do that, great. If you're not, Bob Cat can just like disappear.
I did say in an earlier session that I am Team Carnassials, and now I've said it again. Still Team Carnassials.
See, this is half the fun of having the YouTube power. So thank you, Kristi, for playing along. This has been one of the most fun days in the history of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. So a huge thank you to Katie for getting in touch, to Megan Azad for putting us in touch to begin with. We got on board this all about like mother's milk, which led from like the Rito Hall Foundation. It's been like a really interesting shift of how we ended up here. So I love the nature of science communication, folks, and leading to these amazing collaborations. Truly, this is the best group of scientists ever in one day I think we've ever had on broadcast. And we've done over 2,000 programs in 7 years. So like March Mammal Madness for everybody. Thank you all so much. Kristi, Karen, Katie, for all our team today. I know I've said this at the end of every one of our broadcasts, but it's been such a pleasure and a thrill. Our audience, you guys are unbelievable. So thank you for being so enthused, for heckling each other, for having so much fun. Particularly in this one, this has been the strangest of all the YouTube chats by a significant margin. So way to go as we commemorate 10 years of the festival. I'd be remiss if before I had you guys say a last message, I want to make sure that we all have the chance. Check out that LibGuide, all the educator resources, all that art, everything we've talked about today over the last 7 hours, certainly in this broadcast, is all there. I encourage you to check that out immediately. Check out that bracket, fill it out with your class, have a good time. And on social media at 2022 MMM Let's Go. There's a hashtag, there's all this good stuff. Penguins all the way. And if you're learning, you're winning. This is the essence of this tournament. This is something we come back to every single time today. So it doesn't matter if you have the highest score. It doesn't matter if you knew everything about animals going in. If it's your first time, it matters not. Just enjoy the process. Have a good time with it. I don't see how you could join in this and not have a good time with it. But that's it from me. Kristi, Karen, Katie, in that order, is there a last message you'd like to leave our audience with at the end of this epic love letter to the community festival that we've had the chance to put on today? Kristi.
Yeah, my message would be have fun. Like, research these animals, fill out your bracket, have a fun time, participate in the community. The community really is the best part of this, and we're excited to have you join us.
Thank you so much, Kristi. Karen?
You can never nerd out too hard. If you think that you've found your people hanging around us virtually on Twitter for this tournament every year, you probably have.
Fantastic. And Katie, starter of it all.
Thank you, everyone, for everything you've brought to this tournament, from the narrators, the artists, the librarians, the designers, the people that make the tournament, the people that play the tournament, the teachers that share the tournament, the researchers that do the science we cite, and the funders that fund it, everyone. This is the most amazing emergent community I've ever encountered, of many great communities, and just thank you for being here, and thank you for being you.
Thank you all, everybody. We're going to wrap it up there. Community, head to that LibGuide. Have a wonderful day. Katie, Kristi, Karen, couldn't have more fun than to wrap it up with you today. Have a wonderful time. Keep up the amazing work, and I cannot wait to fill out my bracket.